Today we're going to do an interview with Katy Goshtasbi. JD has been a founder and CEO of a personal branding company since 2007. She is an international speaker and TV personality on the topic of personal branding. So Katy's going to tell us how to do personal branding, and this comes in handy, I'm sure, for anybody that's trying to do some kind of entrepreneur thing or, online kind of stuff, starting a business in this strange year that we've had here in 2020. And one of the things that you and I might be doing to get out of our former rut or our former whatever the heck we were doing is to start our own business and kind of get some branding going of ourselves. And branding, we'll have Katy define branding for us, because I think that's a good thing to understand. Hi, Katy.
Hello, how are you, Bob?
Good. How is it there? How's the weather there? Is it, where are you?
I'm in San Diego.
Oh, well, that's a nice place to be. Did you move yourself as an immigrant? Did you move to America?
Yeah. That's part of my story. I'll tell you all that. Yeah, so we immigrated in '79 during the revolution in Iran because we were Muslim. We had to leave. But we only thought we were leaving for a couple of weeks. So I'll tell you that full story because it makes sense in the progression of my first career and then how I got to my second career. All of that lines up.
I know you do branding. You do helping people to build their brand. But before we get there, let's just start with you were in the throes of revolution and unrest and weird stuff going on, and said, "Hey, this ain't the place for us. Let's get out of here."
Well, I didn't, because I was 6. So this was back in 1979. But we, like I said, we weren't Muslim, and so it was really hard on my mom because she's very nationalistic, but she wasn't. Religion didn't play into that, right? So we packed up 2 suitcases thinking we were coming to the United States for 2 weeks to stay with my mom with 2 brothers who were in school, and we never went back.
Wow.
So, I got to grow up in Indiana in the Midwest of the United States, and it was a great upbringing. I truly wanted to save the world, and I still do. I think everyone has a purpose and a meaning in this world. And so for me, that was being a lawyer. And, I'm a professional public speaker. When I share this story, my audiences often look at me like, can I laugh at that? And I always say, please do laugh, because no one saves the world by becoming a lawyer or a whatever, right? But it's a valiant effort, right? Because there are noble careers out there. So I did that. I put myself through school and I became a securities lawyer, and I had a fantastic career in DC. So I was a federal lobbyist on Washington's Capitol Hill. So I know how politics works. And then from there, I went to the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, and I was a lawyer there. And so I was there when Enron blew up. And some of your audience may not even know what Enron is, but a lot of people probably still have that recollection, and Bernie Madoff and all that stuff. And so I was a regulator. I was in charge of regulating investment advisors and broker-dealers. But slowly throughout all this, between working as a lobbyist on the Hill and watching the Madoff and Enron stuff, I'm starting to become slowly jaded with financial services. I was like, what are we doing here? Like, this isn't life, right? Like, what is going on? So then from there, I went to a major law firm, to the Washington, D.C. office, and I switched hats, and my clients became those I used to regulate. So all the big boys, Fidelity, Franklin Templeton, and all my clients were men twice my age, and I was always whining and dining them, and I would get really good cases. And so that's when my second career kind of started at the same time. Lawyers would come to me and go, how'd you get ahead? How'd you get that client? How'd you get the partner in charge to do this and this? And I would say, I don't have time for this. I'll take you to lunch. I'll tell you what I do. You do it. If it works, great. If not, I'll take you back out to lunch and we'll regroup and try something new. So that was in DC. And then I moved to California, where I am now. I went in-house, which means you go into a corporate setting. And so I was investment counsel at a major insurance company. And that was my last stop in the legal department, in the legal world. And so for lawyers, what they see when I tell my story is there's like a loop I did. I went everywhere you could possibly go as a lawyer, from federal government to law firm life to being in-house. And that was when I suffered burnout. So I was in-house, and by every lawyer standards, like that's the coming, right? Like, oh my gosh, you made it in-house.
Yeah, okay.
I was making a lot of money, but I really wasn't very happy anymore. I had extreme stress and extreme acid reflux as a result. My gastroenterologist had said to me, this is going to kill you. And I'm what, like 34, right? Which is ridiculous. And he said, you need to quit your job. And I said, what, are you going to pay my student loans? And no, at this point, my student loans were paid off. I was pretty proud of myself. But I said, are you going to pay my bills? And so that was the day I went to work. It was a Wednesday. I had spent 15 hours, Bob, drafting about this much, a very small amount of a mutual fund prospectus. And that's all you and your audience needs to know about that mess. And I go home, and it's 9 p.m. at night, to my lovely house on the beach, all by myself. In the dark, I open up my mailbox, and there just so happens to be, by happenstance, one of my own prospectuses. Although I don't believe in coincidences, but there it was. And what did I do? I reflexively threw it away because no one reads that stuff. And so that was my big aha moment.
Yeah.
I'm standing there in the dark, like, what am I doing?
Yeah, I'm making this stuff, and this is the normal reaction, is to pitch it.
I am not making the world a better place. I am not serving a purpose. Because throughout that first career, I used to go around and ask people, I'm like, what are we doing here? And people would be like, what are you talking about? Go back to work. Like, what are you asking stupid questions like that? I'm like, but what are we really doing here? So that aha moment, I said, that's it. I quit my job cold turkey. There was a little bit of drama there, right? Because quitting is not so easy. But this was 2 years before the recession, and no one was quitting. No one was reinventing themselves. People were just holding steady to the corporate brand. And I just said, I can't do it. But so everyone thought I was nuts because I was a woman in a very tough industry, and there were not that many women doing what I was doing. So I was highly regarded, highly paid, highly unhappy as a result, right? So I said, I know you think I'm crazy. I think I'm crazy too, but I can't keep doing this. So I quit, and I took a random community college course. I discovered community college because I grew up in Big Ten Midwestern colleges. And the caption caught my eye, Bob. It said, what do Oprah, Bill Gates, and Warren Buffett have in common? And I was mesmerized. And the answer said they're all practicing their natural talent. And I was like, I don't know what this means, but sign me up. Because I'm also very, I don't know if spiritual is the right word, but I'm intuitive. I had started going within and really focusing on what is my gut telling me? What does my higher self tell me? And everyone has this divineness to them, I really believe. If we just tune into who we are, we can get the answers to these questions. You're doing such a great job putting out to people. So I show up to this class, $50, 3 hours of my life on a Sunday, and it's taught by an ex-Harvard litigator. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't get away from these lawyers to save my life. But I'll never forget that man, Curtis Adney. He changed my life. When the student is ready, the teacher appears. And he, for 25 years, he's been teaching this, and this is 2 years before the recession. The man is truly a pioneer, that we all have something we're naturally good at. And if we do it every day and figure that out, it's a no fail, because people can tell you're good at it, and they resonate with it, and they're just drawn to you. And so you help them, they grow, world evolves, you serve your purpose, everyone's better off, right?
Right.
And I was like, I don't have one of those natural talents. I'm a lawyer. And there were about 40 of us in this class, and they spent 20 minutes on me, no kidding, because I was so pathetic. I just couldn't see the forest from the trees. And they really got me to understand that what I do now is what I'm naturally good at. And so apparently I'm very left brain linear analytical, but it's well balanced against my right creative brain. And that allows me to really be able to work with professionals on who are you? What do you do? What's your story? What's your strength? And how do we package that and message that to your correct audience to sell you, but really more importantly, so people can find their voice and their brand.
You had tremendous success with your, I don't know about tremendous, but pretty damn good success for the field that you did it. That golden thread of your purpose and your talents and the magic that is Katy was always there. And it's probably what built that success, even though it wasn't maybe the perfect field for you to really blossom in. That's probably what you discovered. And that's the thing that you probably discovered and I've discovered with most people is, people are looking for their style. They're looking for, what is my purpose? It's there. It's in everything you do. It's like when I was a young artist, I wanted to find my style. What is my style? You just had to do. And then you turn around one day and look back at it and go, well, there it is. It's been there the whole time. And that's probably, in like the thing that you said, the forest for the trees, you can't see it because it's just a natural part of you happening. And somehow you've got to step aside and look back. And that sounds like what they did in the 20 minutes that they were grilling you,
Well, it's an evolutionary process, if I was to reframe what you're saying so eloquently. Yes, and I call it unearthing who you are as part of the definition of your brand. Who are you? We have to unearth it. It's there, but what happens is the stressors in our lives and society and demands, and now you throw a pandemic on top of it, we become numb to it. So we reach for alternative cures, in quotes, drinking, alcohol, stress. I mean, the suicide rate for lawyers and for professionals is so high because people do not know how to go within, right? So we seek external sources of relief, temporary relief. And look, I'm not a therapist, but I did formal research at UCLA about 12 years ago with a neuroscientist to prove my theories. And here's what I found out. There is a direct inverse correlation between stress and self-confidence. So as our stressors go up in our lives, and you can name a whole list of them, we all have our own, stress is going up, your self-confidence is proportionally dropping. Meaning what? Meaning your brand value is dropping, it's low. Meaning what though really means you're not emotionally resonating with your audience anymore. So they're not buying you, they're not your biggest fan, they're not gravitating towards you, they don't get you. If you're looking for a date, you can't get that date. All of this applies to personal as well as professional. And that's a question I often get, well, are we talking about my personal brand or my business brand? I'm like, you are you go wherever you go. Your natural skills and talents do too. We just have to have you tap into them, like you said. They're there, and it's not wrapped around a title, right? I make it sound like I just pranced out of the legal world and pranced into my new, life. I didn't. It took me a while, so I want your audience to really not be Pollyanna about this, although I've heard Pollyanna died a happy girl, that this stuff takes time, it takes concerted effort, and I say it takes self-awareness. A huge part of my program is self-awareness. I struggled for years trying to figure out who I was. I mean, I always thought I was a lawyer. And my sister one day said to me, oh my God, you're a human being. What is wrong with you? And my identity was all wrapped up in what I did. And I think now, all these years later, people are slowly waking up to that. But this was like 14 years ago where people were not talking this language that you and I are. And being lost meant having a label and a career, right? Which meant you weren't lost. But fundamentally, people were so unhappy, and I still think they are. So my approach is really to get them to unearth who they are, and then they can deliberately in a controlled manner, pick that career and that brand, and then everything starts flourishing from there. So I took all of my years of pain and I distilled it down into a program where people can get it on their own, but in a shorter period of time and with no pain, hopefully with fun. Right.
Well, and that there's that symptom, I know when I was growing up, there was this it was either duality or multi-personalities that you sort of developed of, I'm going to go do my job, and that's separate from my life, and so many people get trapped into that of, working 5 or 6 days a week so they can have a day off and be themselves, which is this wacky thing, or working, for 40 years of their life so they can retire and do what they really want to do. Really strange concept if you step outside of it and go, well, why would you do that? You know, I mean,
I always say that. I say, I don't have a retirement plan because the day I retire is the day I have to die, right? Because who I am is what I do. I mean, it's just what I'm good at, and my purpose and my real passion and my real caring for people channeled that way. And that's it. And it really is that simple.
And
it's scary, right?
Well, it is scary because it takes that leap of faith to get out there and do it. And conversely, I looked in my life and said, well, who are the really happy, cool, successful people? They weren't working. I mean, they were working in terms of how many hours were they putting into whatever their vocation was or whatever they were doing. They were like 24/7 doing their thing, but it wasn't work to them. It was their passion. It was their, you know, I mean, they lived and they breathed it and they enjoyed it. And most of them did. Some of them were a little crazy, but, you know, because they got obsessed with their stuff. Because I've known, I've known some really, really, really wealthy guys. I've worked for them, and they're just like off the scale nutty. Like if they didn't do 1,000 deals a day, they couldn't sleep, you know. And so they never could relax. But the guys that were really doing really well and having a happy life and banging around and having exciting stories to tell, they didn't have trouble getting up in the morning. Because getting up in the morning was, oh, good, I get to go do what I love to do. And that's a very different thing than I'm going to go to my job, I'm going to make my money, and then I'm going to, you know, set aside my money so I can do what I love to do or what I like to play with. This is sort of it's just a refinement. To me, it's a refinement of, if you get focused on it, it takes away a lot of those other concerns. And even though it's difficult to confront, it's like you have to wake up and you have to kind of bugger through the things that are in your way to get there. But once you're on, you know, and everybody knows about getting in the zone, getting, you know, kind of where you look up and realize, oh my God, it's been 5 hours. But you know, like the artist is painting and he has no idea what day or time of day it is. You know, and when you
call it flow, but whatever it is, it's beautiful to be in that space.
Yeah, and if you could figure out a way, and that's the key here. If you figure out what that purpose is, and then figure out a way to monetize it, or make it pay for your bills, or you know, make it kind of remunerate you for that time and attention, which is exactly what you're talking about. You do.
I'm not asking people to change careers necessarily, Bob. I don't think everyone should leave the practice of law. We need good lawyers, right? We need good X, Y, and Z. I'm just saying do it intentionally, strategically, with control and a mindset that I choose this. Because when we don't have a choice in our lives, we're trapped, very much like you were saying. And that is awful, right? So that's why my job was such a slog. I became a lawyer because I really, as an immigrant, I was beaten up as a kid. I didn't look like all the rest of the kids in Indiana, right? Right now, I think it's a great thing. But back then, it was hard. Everybody wants to be like everybody else, especially with children. And children are not nice. We're cruel to one another. I mean, I had it good, don't get me wrong, but it was hard still. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to get them to respect me by becoming a lawyer. It's not a good enough reason, but it's legitimate. So many of us do that in one way or another. But, you know, even if that was your reason as you're listening to this, fine. But reframe it. Choose again and make it your choice and create the life, the flow around it that makes you a happy lawyer, really, to put it bluntly. Look, everything I teach is fundamental. It's not simplistic. We forget the fundamentals, though, and we really do need to recapture that, because I think the pandemic did that for us. It said, slow down, sit still, figure yourself out. People were fidgety. I mean, I loved this time. I still do. I mean, it's tough on me too, right? I miss family and seeing people, but I'm good with that, right? And so when you go within, you can say, I want to be a lawyer, but this is how I want to do it, according to my own terms. And that doesn't mean I shun others or I'm going to be belligerent, but when we know who we are and we sit in that power, it's really exciting for people to be around us, right? Because upward of 78% of everything you and I buy is not based on content. No one is buying you because you're good at X, Y, and Z. They're buying you because they like you, and you emote happiness at some level, which draws them in. That's why I call my program the Emotional Resonance Factor program. And if you can figure that out for yourself, then you can resonate it. And it's like this beautiful cycle, to your point, that you give what you're good at, the world responds, and everybody benefits, rather than this take. And, you know, you see what happens when politics goes awry and the ego, you know, is just front and center. It's just nonsense, right? But that's not just politics, that's all of us. So if people would be brave enough, and I really say that, I tell all my clients and all my programs, you need to get uncomfortable. If you're not uncomfortable in my programs, then you're not benefiting. Don't waste your time or your money. And that's okay. We all have different places where we're all on different parts of the spectrum of life. But courage too. You need to be brave enough to say, I want things different for myself. And I'm willing to experiment and get creative and get out of my left linear brain and into my right creative brain, which is where your brand lies, right? Artists know that, like you, but the rest of us are taught to sit in our left linear analytical brain. That's what makes us good lawyers, accountants, doctors, right? A plus B equals C. Well, that side of our brain traps us into non-creativity, non-flourishment, we're not able to see alternatives, and it's a tough place to be in because it's also not where our emotional high lies. You got a choice, and it's really up to you, and if you don't want to do it, that's awesome too. I made a new friend, but this is what the problem is. We find that lawyers and all professionals say, well, I don't want to sell. Well, you don't have to sell anything. Just show up and share your story and why you do what you do and why you're good at it, and find the right audience as a result of that. And then you don't have to sell anything. If you're good at what you do, tell me about it, because then you can help me. And isn't that a beautiful thing? Right.
And it's that, I mean, a lot of people have that issue. I have that issue of not wanting to preach or to sell something. I don't necessarily have an issue about preaching. I can get pretty preachy, but but it's the selling part. It's the convincing someone that they need what I have and what happens with me, and maybe this will resonate with people, is do I have a real certainty about that thing that I'm trying to sell them? You know, and if that's not there, there's a phoniness, and everybody's got their BS radar up. You know, they can tell when you're, hey, this isn't genuine. This isn't, you know, this isn't what's there. So, but finding your purpose helps to dig out what is genuine, what is the things that you believe in, and then it's not sales. Then it's just, hey, this is really who I am and what I'm about and how I can help you if you need it. You know, and if you don't need it, well, you certainly don't need what I'm selling, you know, so, and you have to kind of redefine what is sales. The other thing you said, I think that was quite interesting, is it's fundamentals, you know, and it doesn't really matter what you've been doing or what you picked to train yourself in, what you went to school for, what you're actually doing. Those are all resources that you have accumulated, and your style, your purpose is still within that, but you got chops. Like as a lawyer, you developed chops, you developed fundamentals, you understood what the rules of the game are, more so than somebody that didn't have your training and your experience. So, and you're saying that that's the one side of the brain. The other side of the brain is that creative part, and you need both, because, and I'm speaking from the other side, when you're creative and you've got a million ideas happening every millisecond. Oh, there's this and there's that, and that was my problem, is I could just do anything. So I did nothing. I accomplished nothing because I didn't have the discipline, the chops, okay, so how do you organize it? How do you do the A plus B equals C? How do you know, what do you do with that? Or that's, so right brain, left brain, the whole thing comes together and makes a brain. That's when it works. If you're hanging out too much on one side or the other, it's not going to work. You won't get any traction,
My strength is really to allow professionals to access who they really are, to tap into that. And it goes back to what you were saying, authentic brands win. And people say to me all the time, I can't sell. I don't like to brag about myself. And it's back to what you said. When you're self-confident, you're not bragging. You are self-promoting yourself in a way that's about other people rather than about you. And there's steps to that, though. You've got to know who you are, what you're selling, what your strengths are, why you're good at that. And then it comes out with such clarity and such conviction. You surprise yourself, right? But it's controlled at that point, right? And you know how to say it, what to say. It's not contrived. It's just clear, and it's attractive for people to be around that. So at that point, healthy self-promotion is, listen, Bob, I'm really good at this branding stuff, and here's what you're saying you need, and I want to support you and get you there. How can I support you? Is that a bad sales job? If it is, then people buy the way they sell, right? You really can see that.
Mm-hmm.
If you have trouble buying a pair of shoes or a washer and dryer, if it takes you 8 months to do that, then you're not going to be able to sell, because you buy and sell the same way, with trepidation and with this tarnish of everyone's out to get me. And so that really takes examination, right? And actually I have everyone write their life story. So I called it forever personal connection story. Some people now call it origin story. The term has evolved, but it's really about what has led you up to this point, and where are those things that, I'm not a therapist, but it's therapeutic. Like what developed this mindset for you? What happened along the way where you think everyone's out to get you and you're out to get everyone else as a result, or you're so scared of selling yourself? And it's true for all of us. Like, I'm not immune to this. It's just I've seen over the years and thousands of professionals I've worked with that people can get this down for themselves because we're boosting their self-confidence by reducing their stress in this process. And that's exciting for people, for them to see the evolution of themselves. And it's scary too, because I'm saying, who are you? And people are like, I don't want to know who I am. I just want to do this job from my left linear brain that shields me from that pain of knowing who I am, right? So it's legitimate, but there's not really any other way out that I see it, to stay in that flow and to really be dedicated and have an easier life, right? Like, when people figure this out, this, it's just an easier life. It's a happier life. And so wouldn't you want to do deals that come at you easier, you make more money with less stress and are happier also? People can't fathom it. I couldn't fathom it. My job as a lawyer was hard. It was a slog.
Right.
So,
well, and it's taking that slug away. I mean, and that's one of the things that I discovered when I was being successful. It wasn't because I was out banging on doors and making people employ me or making people use my stuff. It was when somebody was knocking on my door saying, hey, you're pretty good at this. Can you do this? Can you help me with this? It's a way different flow. And that's what this turns into. Once you get on the track, you're not pounding the pavement trying to get people. It's the same thing when I was dating. If a girl as beautiful and wonderful as she might be, if she didn't show any interest in me, then I wasn't interested. Yeah, I wasn't interested. No matter how wonderful or beautiful or popular or whatever it was.
You didn't take that to mean anything about you. It's just, not everyone can be your audience. You don't want everyone. You don't want to date everyone. Oh, I don't know. Maybe sometimes, my guess is we're a handful as women. You just want to date one of us.
Right.
Maybe one or two of us. Most people don't understand that this is an evolutionary process of you finding the correct people to attract. And you don't want to attract everyone, but you also want to learn about yourself in the process and how that attraction works and how that resonance works.
Sure.
And then everything flourishes.
And then you could also kind of look back and think, as we were growing up as kids, who were the popular kids? Who were the ones that were really attractive to us? And they were the cool guys. They were the cool girls, the ones that had self-confidence, had their own certainty, had pieces of what we're talking about. Those were the ones that were insecure and didn't know who they were. You know, most of us were wondering what the hell we were about, but there was this one cool kid that, wow, he knows his thing. He can stand his ground. He was strong. He was tough. He was himself. He was more himself than we were. Early on, as humans, we kind of get this. We gloss over it because of, I don't know, whatever reasons society pushes us this way or that way. But the truth's always kind of there. Somebody that's confident. You know, the movie stars, those guys that got on the big silver screen, and, you know, the James Deans and these heroes, they had the beauty of having a script written for them. So they said exactly the right things and did exactly the right things in the situation. In life, you know, it's not as scripted. You know, when you get approached by a situation, you have to kind of turn inward to figure out what my response to this is. If you're secure and confident and you know you're on the right path, you can find the right answers. And that's what the writers of that hero did for him.
It was a fairy tale, but it doesn't have to be fiction for the rest of us. But we can't even fathom. And you know why? I've discovered it's because we're all so used to making things difficult for ourselves. And we're used to that discomfort of being in pain and kind of tortured. I know it sounds really dramatic, but
it is.
You know, I really have to stop and think about, like, why am I making this so hard on myself? Because I'm used to that. And I think everything has to be hard and difficult because I'm a victim of it all, right? And so a pandemic sweeps through and we're all a victim of it for sure, right? But there's always a different way to see things. And I always say this to my clients, so let's reframe that. Let's reframe that. Because the world is going to happen out there, and how are we choosing to see it? And if you think, I've got this mastered, I do not, but I'm always self-aware and always working on it. Like, Katy, what's your viewpoint on this? What are you thinking? How are you showing up? And how are you making your life way more difficult than it needs to be? And how are you not in alignment with your true self as a result, right? I think our true self, our alignment is that we should be happier. And we're meant to be happy beings that enjoy life rather than make it so difficult, even in the face of a pandemic, honestly. I agree. And do that so well.
Yeah, well, we all kind of need to learn to kind of fill in the blank here of, I'm glad this happened because, you know, when it's, ouch, you know, well, I'm glad that happened because, and then you fill in the blank, because there is probably a pretty good reason why you have that barrier, or you put that barrier in front of you, something you needed to learn in life, in a relationship, in work, and whatever you're confronting. You're gonna bang into this stuff, and that's just life. And it should be the joy of it. I'm reading this book now by a guy named Goggins. He's a Navy SEAL guy, and he had like the most miserable life you can imagine, growing up as a kid. And I mean, just you have to read the book if you want. But it is, for my taste, too much suffering. But he learned to love the suffering. He learned to love, and he's like this amazing athletic guy that accomplished incredible stuff, and he's an icon for athletes, for the man's man, the guy that's doing challenges, and that's what his book's about. And it's basically looking at the difficulties, which he had tremendous of, as opportunities of what am I going to learn from this? What am I mean, he was like winning races on broken legs and stuff, just like pushing through the pain.
Example.
Yeah, you know, but
it doesn't have to be that hard.
I know. You know, I read the book and go, wow, you're really into this, buddy. You know, it's like, you know what? I wouldn't maybe take it to that extreme, but it's an example of what us as humans can challenge ourselves with, and there's no upper limit. I mean, that's one of the truths out of this book, is there really isn't an upper limit. Once you get on the path and you start looking at the challenges and the difficulties and the discomfort, And when we're talking, running on broken legs, that's got to be pretty much, pretty classical discomfort. Pushing through that and finding whatever the next level is, and persevering and getting there, there's just no upper limit, so that discomfort, it shouldn't be, we kind of have to reframe it as, and when anytime you're stretching and you're working out, or or you got to learn something new, it takes that discomfort, it takes that pushing that envelope a little bit, and we have to, and I think we have to kind of teach ourselves and our kids and those around us that's kind of a good thing. We should appreciate it, we should be thankful for it.
Yeah, it's such a duality, because we're used to torturing ourselves and being uncomfortable all the time, and we just insist on sitting in misery, basically. Yet we're not willing to stretch outside of our comfort zones a little bit intentionally and become uncomfortable to grow and get out of the constant state of misery. And that's just life. That's being human. But that's why I always ask all my clients, could you just sit in it for a second and allow yourself to feel that? Because it's the F word, feelings, right? Oh my gosh. But that's how we purchase. Every purchasing decision, everything we buy and sell psychologically is driven through the emotions and feelings. And if professionals could figure this out, then they could buy and sell a lot better, because they could actually be happier as a result, because they would understand that tapping into their feelings is all there is, right? And I'm a business person, I'm pragmatic, but I'm also pragmatic, so I get, okay, this feeling stuff is real, and I'm going to use it in order to figure out the psychology of sales, because Coke and Pepsi certainly have. I mean, they get that there's only one emotion that sells anything, and that's some variation of happiness. So the taglines are open happiness, drink happiness. Starbucks uses joy and happiness in all their campaigns. Zappos doesn't deliver shoes, they deliver happiness. Disney, the happiest place on earth. Why doesn't all that work? Because it's an inanimate object, it's a product, and they have figured out they have to infuse it with happiness to sell it. Now, why people, professionals, don't want to say, hey, I am an inanimate object. I can express feelings. I'm a head of Coke and Pepsi, and I'm going to use that to my benefit. We don't, because we don't think we're deserving. We're not used to it. We've got this personal connection story that leaves us disconnected, all sorts of stuff, right? But pragmatically, people come to me and go, I want to sell better. I want to let people know who I am and what I do. I want to be remembered for it. I want my voice to be heard for it. I want to get paid my fair value. I want to live an easier, stress-free life, because I don't think my job should make my life so difficult. And I'm like, giddy up, let's go. Let's develop that brand that gets you the results that you want, because it does need an intentionality behind it, a strategic plan behind it. Wow. Otherwise, we're flailing, and then we don't feel we're empowered and in control of it.
So tell us your programs. What do you got? How can somebody join in and take advantage of, this? And I'm feeling the genuineness here. So, I mean, it looks like, wow, this can work for people. So how do they do it?
Yeah, thank you for
Katy,
asking. It really can. It's transformational. I'm so privileged and so honored. Honestly, I consider it my sacred duty to do what I do. And I see people that are just not the same ever again. If you don't want to be the same ever again, look at this. But if you don't, then don't. But it is transformational. So really multiple ways. I started off doing one-on-one coaching with people. And then people were like, well, one, I'm just me, right? It's a commodity. How am I going to monetize that? But two, people couldn't afford it. So then we have a 7-week branding bootcamp program, where it used to be 7 months, and we have run that for 10 years now, virtually and in person. We switched it to 7 weeks when COVID happened back in March, because people were coming and going, I have time for this now. and I need to figure out who I am, and I need it faster. So it works just as well in 7 weeks. I found it actually works better. So that's another pandemic silver lining, I call it. If you just adapt and go with the flow, people will tell you what they need. So in 7 weeks, we cover A to Z of your brand. Who are you? What's your story? What's your natural talent? How do we target that towards your audience? What's your messaging? How do you communicate that well? How do you network that well? And how do you put it into a business brand? And so the next cycle is going to start in January. And so that's that. However, before that, we have a 14-day challenge, because I see from clients and from myself, frankly, that people are running into burnout at the end of the year. They still want to keep going, but all the different things that have happened this year, and we all know that, so let's not waste time on that, has left people more in burnout at the end of the year. And then we don't feel like we're going to give ourselves permission to stop because, well, one, we're not taking any vacations really, but two, we don't feel like we're worthy of that because we haven't made enough money, or this year has been so weird we feel like we need to keep pushing. So 7 days in December, it's free. Sign up and I will give you the link, where every day I feed you branding fundamental so that you can decide how to end the year without burning out.
So it's like a 2-week free challenge.
2-week free challenge, and you do it on your own time. I just give it to you in bite-sized pieces, and you implement it on your own time. So 7 days in December for you to figure out how you want to end the year. It's very empowering. And then 7 days at the very beginning of January, so you get the year going on your own terms, but with tips and with fundamentals of, oh, this is how I want to show up. And I want to make 2021 different than 2020, regardless of where's the vaccine, where's the pandemic.
I'll drink to that, yeah.
Right?
I'll drink to that, yeah.
And then we have a branding made easy guide. It's a 3-step guide that I put together because people wanted to know what I was doing for my own brand that works for me. And so that's available. I'll share that link too. And these are all free things. You know, my podcast, I have KTG TV episodes. There's lots of free content. And then if they want to, get the content, that's fine. And then we'll let them know when boot camp starts in January.
Everybody's kind of in that mode, because we all do that. We all do our New Year's resolution thing. Most of it falls flat because we don't follow through. But everybody wants to quit smoking, or they're going to do their diet, or I'm going to go to the gym now, or I'm going to, all that stuff. That's a natural cycle for us, so it's perfect timing. The difference now is good. Let's get you some really concrete stuff that you can carry through the rest of the year and get you on the right track, as opposed to just another, I'm going to give it another shot, and
that's the last thing I want. All of my programs have a money-back guarantee because I don't want money to be the reason why people don't benefit, but also I want people to truly not just look at this as a one-time thing. Branding is a marathon. It's not a sprint. It's an evolution of who you are. It's an iterative process. Bob version 1.0, Bob version 2.0. So it's always ongoing. So I always tell people, please don't look at this as a one-time thing. And also, the other aspect of this is it's about diversity, right? When people figure out their brands, then they actually start to own that, hey, other people have unique and special brands too. And we see the incidence of implicit bias and discrimination really go down. Within workplaces, toxicity goes down. And so I used to be the chair of the entire American Bar Association Law Practice Division. And this year I'm chairing diversity and inclusion for them, because I truly believe that once people develop their brands, they actually embrace diversity because they have the capacity to see everyone.
Yeah.
At the end of the year is a great time to start that, because you get to step back and go, okay, what could I be seeing differently about somebody else next year that I chose not to see? So there's all sorts of benefits.
Now, I'm not in America, but I see the glimpses that I see. Oh, everybody's really divided, one way or the other. Everybody's kind of pissed off at the other side, like there's two sides. There really isn't, it's America. The America that I grew up in was, and we have this two-party system that our forefathers made, and people that understand the Constitution. It's a system. It's a tough one, but it was designed to have those two sides so that we find something that works for the majority of the people. You got the right and the left and everything in between. And that friction has become so divided now that willingness to accept or look at someone else's diversity, like what you're talking about here, that there's such insecurity on both sides of the fence that no one's willing to listen, no one's willing to have a healthy argument. You know, it turns into slinging and nasty stuff. And I fell into this trap. I was looking at something on Facebook and somebody put up a post and I went, oh, that's kind of weird. And I responded to it. And then it turned into this. I wasted so much time on it because, you know, they were saying this and then I was saying that. And I was honestly trying to go, well, what about this? Look at this, look at that. You know, I don't necessarily agree with you, but let's look at some. And they were just like, put your big boy pants on and you can, you know, and it was all this sort of slurring kind of thing of, and I thought, this guy feels strongly enough about this to post it publicly, and then I'm going to go in and change his mind about it? That's just silly. You know, I mean, and what a waste of both of our time for me to get involved in that argument. You know, maybe it was good for people to see both sides of the argument, but for me it was, at the end of the day, and it literally tied up my brain for the entire day and the next day of, well, I should have said this, I should have. And it's like, well, that's just crazy. You know, it's like, okay, he thinks that. Cool. You know, I don't think that, and maybe here's why. Should be the end of it. You know, it should be, and accept the diversity of it. So, you know, we get into these fights and these struggles, and it's usually born from our own insecurity or our own ability to kind of step back, feel confident with yourself, and say, you know what, let me try that other idea on for a second and see, you know, and yeah.
So I have a mantra, and the word in my mantra that has extreme meaning to me is discernment. When I look at things discerningly, with discernment, I am listening non-judgmentally, which means it's exactly what you say. I put myself in that other person's shoes. And in the branding programs, I call it your reality. Do you see the other person's reality? And that's about having to be non-judgmentally listening. And when I do that, so when I'm discerning and I'm really listening non-judgmentally, and I have the capacity to understand the other side, and then also I get inkling into what's my direction going to be next? What am I going to do, or what am I going to say, or how am I going to be different as a result of listening non-judgmentally and getting them? And generally, sometimes it's just, I'm not going to do anything, but I'm just going to rest easy here that, okay, that's them, this is me. And that is a hallmark of a confident brand, right? Confident brands are authentic and genuine and self-assured because they accept the rest of the world and they don't make it about themselves. But we all fall into those traps. You don't think I do, but it all goes back to exactly what you did. Self-awareness and going, hopefully that was educational. But there's a boundary there, right? People are like, well, if I don't say anything, my voice isn't heard. I'm like, yes. So it's an ebb and a flow. Wherever you examine, when should I speak up versus why am I speaking up? Am I speaking up just because I want my ego to be, fed, and just because I am right and they are wrong? One of the best, I'm working on my third book, and one of the best advice my book editor gave me, she said, stop using the words right and wrong anywhere. In any part of your life, because that's judgmental. And I thought, oh my gosh, this woman's brilliant, and she really is. So it's not about that, but it's just, if you must speak up because it feeds into one of your values. And we develop values, brand values for all our clients, because that's when you know when you should speak up. So I have 4 values: fairness, freedom, faith, and fun. And if I'm going to speak up, it's because something doesn't seem fair and it doesn't seem fun, and it's not about faith, right? But otherwise I'm just not, because then that's my ego. So there you go. I always tell people that come to me and they're much younger, and I'm like, wow, if I had this stuff in my back pocket when I was your age, I would have been lost for as long as I was. But part of getting lost is getting found, and it's the fun process. Yeah,
the old adage about when's the best time to plant a tree, and it's like 10 years ago, but the second best is right now. So so you have to just buck up, do it. You know, stretch that little bit of uncomfortableness. If you feel, you know, you guys out there in the audience, if you feel this sense of authenticity that Katy has, is, you know, okay, take the challenge. Gosh, it's a free thing. You know, it's 2 weeks. It's not free because you have to get your time into it, and your payment is going to be your dedication to yourself. You're going to have to stretch a little bit. That's what it's going to cost you. But you have that. You know, it's not something that your pocketbook is going to keep from you. And then most likely your pocketbook is going to reap the benefits of that if you do pay that attention and that time to it. So, you know, why not? Why not?
Why not? Most people tell me, you know, when they don't sign up, I don't have time for this, and I'm like, and you know, the money back guarantee, they really can't say it's too expensive, right? But I always say, when is a better time?
Yeah.
When is your transformation and your ability to be happier and healthier and wealthier? When is that better? There's never a better time for anything, right? I mean, there just isn't. We're all busy. Everyone's just doing their thing. But yeah, it's free. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, what fun. It was a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for doing this this great program that you do. I think it's a huge service for people, and people can learn tremendously from you. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. I think more people need to hear this message of yours. So I'm happy to share it. I can't wait to get it, and then I'll forward it on, and maybe I'll send some people for you to interview if I think they're...
Oh, that'd be awesome. Yeah, that'd be awesome. If you know, anybody else out there listening, if you've got a great story to tell and you figured out your purpose, you know, like Katy has, let's hear about it. You know, let's share it. Let's kind of, you know, help each other along, because that's the other thing, is that you're going to find your uniqueness in terms of your own purpose. And there really isn't a competition for that, because there's nobody else there that's like you, whoever you are, and there's nobody else that has the combination of talents that you have, and you know, and skill levels and all that kind of stuff. So sharing that, it's really a selfish thing for me. If everybody figured out what their true purpose was and got on it, they would make a better world, which I happen to live in. You know, so that would be cool. You know, hey, everybody, make a better world for me and my family to live in. That's a good thing. So as selfish as it might seem, you know, we shy away from the selfishness, that, you know, because there's the stigma, oh, you're being selfish. You know what? The people that make big impressions on the planet and do way wonderful things, it comes from them figuring out what they're about and them pushing forward with what that is. So
self first.
Yeah, and it is, and I think we need to kind of reframe that definition of, you know what, yes, you're being selfish, but that's not a bad thing if you're going about it with an open mind, and you're going about it pushing through your pain and realizing your true potentials as a being. You know, you have to be quote unquote selfish about it, but that move forward pulls everyone along with you, and we could all use it. So get out there and be selfish, damn it. So okay, well, hey, thanks ever so much for spending time with us, and I'll keep in touch, and I'll let you know what's going on with this thing.
Wonderful, and I'll follow this with an email with the links.
Okay, great. Thanks a bunch. Have a good night, or good. What are you? Yeah, it's a good night.
Yeah. I'm up 5:30, and you're just starting your day.
Yeah, right. Okay, take care.
I hope to see you soon. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye. Thank you.